Paperback Reader. We start off with a couple of books from Andre Norton. The first one is Forerunner. The second one is the Sioux Spaceman with this great cover art. Once I saw this, I knew I had to get this book. Couldn't resist picking this up. This is cover art by Ed Valigursky. Here is the Chaos Fighters from Ace Books. You're going to see a lot of Ace books in this video. It's written by Robert Moore Williams. My copy is from 1955. And on the left is The Lord of Blood from 1970 by Dave Can Arnan with great cover art by Jim Steranko. And if you like old TV shows, this book about Maverick starring James Garner from 1959 Dell Publishing. And on the right is some great newspaper clippings from Ripley's Believe It or Not, printed in 1960. Now here's another great book from Ace Publishers. And the story is by Isaac Asimov. I'm probably going to butcher a lot of these names, so get used to that. It's called The Man Who Upset the Universe, 1952. And from Pocket Books, 1953 is The War of the Worlds, written by H.G. Wells. Artwork here by Al Nozaki. Next, we have Swordsman in the Sky from 1964 with cover art by Frank Frazetta. And then we have Forward in Time, 1974, Ben Bova. Once again, if I pronounce these wrong, I apologize. Yeah, here is a Ace double book where you flip it over. It's The Automated Goliath by William F. Temple. The cover art is by Ed Emshwiller. So you flip it over and it's The Three Sons of Amara, also by William F. Temple. And I am trying to get in close so you can see this great artwork. Yes, I'm a sucker for these Ace double books. Look at that art. That's just, to me, that's fabulous. Now to change it up a little bit, this show is going to have all kinds of books, so get used to it. Up next is The Life of John Bunyan. If you're not familiar with him, he wrote a book a few hundred years ago called The Pilgrim's Progress. And here is an older copy of The Cross and the Switchblade, written by David Wilkerson.
There are a number of ways to get a safer ride, like always fasten your seat belt.
Seat belt?
And never ride on worn shocks and struts. They can allow your tires to lose contact with the road, resulting in a loss of control and braking. Get a new set of Monroe Gasmatic shocks and struts. They help your vehicle hold the road.
Hey, I feel safer already. So do I.
For a smoother, safer ride, America rides Monroe.
Now, we're going to really change things up. Here are some Andy Capp books. This one, it's Pub Time Andy Capp from 1973. And then we have Very Sneaky Andy Capp from 1969. Followed by a third book here, Let's Salute Andy Capp from 1985. Now, on to some Tarzan books by Edgar Rice Burroughs. I have 3 copies of Tarzan and the Lost Empire, but each one has a different artist rendition. Now this one has a map on the back. Of course, it's from Dell Books, 1951. Cover artist Robert Stanley. The next publisher is Ace Books, which comes with the beautiful Frank Frazetta cover art, and Frazetta also does an interior page of art, which I will show you. Disregard some lady scribbled a name in there, but anyway, that's the little piece of art by Frank Frazetta, also in the book. So remember, there's all 3 of these books have the same title, Tarzan and the Lost Empire. This one's by Ballantine Books. It's from 1963 with cover art by Dick Powers. So there you can compare all 3 artists. I personally prefer the first 2 more than the third one. Now, sticking with Ballantine Books, or Ballantine Books, however you pronounce that, we have Tarzan in the City of Gold. And then we have Tarzan the Invincible, cover art by Robert Abbott. Many times these books will be numbered so you could know what book you're reading. Book 13, book 14. Tarzan at Earth's Core, Ballantine, first printing, cover art by Dick Powers. That's pretty cool with all the dinosaurs. And then Tarzan's Quest. This cover art is by Robert Abbott. And although it's not a Tarzan book, here's the Chessmen of Mars by Edgar Rice Burroughs, published by Ace in 1962. You're going to see a lot of science fiction books. But first, we'll show some Marmaduke. This is a small paperback of Marmaduke. It's Marmaduke Rides Again, 4th printing, 1971. To illustrate how short it is, I'll put a regular size paperback next to it. Here is Dick Tracy. It's a 3-book set from 1975. The first one is Against the Villain Called Pruneface. The second one introduces Snowflake and Shaky. Of course, these days the word snowflake kind of has a different meaning. But here's Snowflake and Shaky. These are reprints from the strips in the 1940s. Then the third book shows Mrs. Pruneface trying to get revenge for what happened to her husband. Now for some more Ace Science Fiction. It's The Twisted Men, written by A.E. Van Vogt. This book was printed in 1964. On the reverse side of the book is One of Our Asteroids is Missing by Calvin M. Kirk. Great artwork here. Now here's an Isaac Asimov book called Lucky Star and the Big Sun of Mercury. The cover art is by Darrell K. Sweet in 1984. Look at that robot. Here's The Apostle from Space from 1978, written by Gordon Harris. Try to zoom in on some of this artwork. And from Lancer Books comes The Dreadful Sanctuary by Eric Frank Russell in 1967. Look at how great this is. And another Andre Norton book called Shadowhawk from Ace Publishing, 1965. Next is the Amazing Spider-Man newspaper strips. Both of these are going to be from the year 1980. This first one has Dr. Doom and Dr. Octopus. Here's the second one, back cover first. Both of these are in full color. And of course drawn by the great John Romita. Up next is a couple of Belvedere books. You don't hear much about Belvedere anymore, but he was created by George Crenshaw. The first book is a double-sized flip book, although the cover, they color him slightly yellowish orange, but inside the strip he's referred many times as a white dog with spots. And all of these are basically one panel gags where Belvedere is up to some crazy thing and people have to react to it. Up next is a couple of Dennis the Menace books, The Babysitter's Guide and Dennis the Menace and His Girls from 1977. Then we have a Conan the Barbarian, printed in 1978. It reprints the Barry Smith artwork and the issues from 1971. In that vein of Conan, in the 1970s, a lot of people wanted more barbarian stories in comic books. So Marvel gave us Thongor the Barbarian from Creatures on the Loose. And those issues were based on the Thongor novels. Here's Thongor in the Dragon City and Thongor in the City of Magicians. This one is Thongor fights the Pirates of Tarkus, printed in 1970. All of these are by Lynn Carter. Here's Thongor Against the Gods from 1967. Then we have Thongor at the End of Time. It's a first printing, 1968. Some of those were given to me by Charlton66. I appreciate that. He found out what a Thongor fan I was, and he found a few for me. And after seeing Thongor, you'd probably like to see Dragon Slayer. This book is illustrated in full color. And here's another Ace double science fiction book, The Plague Ship by Andrew Norton, almost mispronounced it. And the flip side has another Andrew Norton book, Voodoo Planet. I'm trying to let you see all the great art here on this. Great stuff. And now we go to Heathcliff. Here's a couple of Heathcliff books. The first one is from 1977. And the second one is from 1982. Some people kind of think of Heathcliff as a Garfield knockoff. I don't. I think they're totally two different cats. I only have two Heathcliff books. Here we have The Treasury of Clean Business Jokes. This is from 1985. And we have Animal Farm paperback from 1946. And I think Animal Farm is getting harder and harder to find. It's being removed from many libraries. Probably all kinds of conspiracy theories of why that's happening. So who's going to help us out from all that? Why, it's none other than Captain America from Pocket Books. It's a first printing, 1979, all in full color. These are so dynamite to have in your collection. And with Captain America, you have to have None Dare Call It Conspiracy from 1971. Those two are probably must-haves, I should say. Now here's a Flintstones joke book from 1978. And then we have an oversized book from Charlton Publishing of Barney and Betty from 1974. It was based on the comic book they were already producing. While I'm at it, I'll go ahead and show this fellow oversized paperback of Bugs Bunny. Now here's Archie's Superhero Special from 1979, which reprinted some of the early Archie heroes like the Fly, the Web, and the Jaguar. And similar to that is here's Jughead's Superhero Special from the distant past of 2023. But enough of that. Let's get back to some Spider-Man. Here's a small, thin paperback from 1988, reprinting the Chameleon, the Kangaroo, and Electro. Very thin, but very good. Now everybody needs the following book in their collection. This came out in 1977 and reprints Amazing Fantasy 15 and the first 6 issues of Spider-Man with the great Steve Ditko as artist. A must-have in any collection, I think. These pocket books, they're full color editions, are a great way to get hooked on these stories and be exposed to Steve Ditko art and the great storytelling. Continuing on with more Spider-Man. Here's some great team-up action. This team-up book is from 1981. As you can see, they were well read and well loved. You're gonna see a book that I really wore out coming up. Speaking of well-loved books, this Fantastic Four book, which reprints the first 6 issues, is another must-have. Please excuse the condition of this book. It's my second copy. As a kid, I wore out my first copy, and as you can see, I started to wear this one out too. In the same spirit as that other book I showed you, Fantastic Four, this one is similar as it reprints the first 3 issues, although black and white. But at least it shows you what the covers look like in color. It's real thin. I want to try to show you. There you go. That's from FF number 1, where they fight the Mole Man. Still neat to have. And speaking of the Fantastic Four, here is the collector's album from 1966. And for more black and white comics, here's one featuring the Silver Surfer from 1982. The cover is by Bob Larkin, I think. And if you find out I'm giving you a detail that's not true, let me know down later in the comments. As a kid, I found that the real Hulk stories were so far superior to the TV show. Here's another must-have for any collection. This came out in 1978. And this other Hulk book, please note the description on the cover that says, Star of TV. Marvel Comics illustrated version of The Incredible Hulk, January 1982, first edition. Reprint stories from Avengers 88 and The Incredible Hulk 140. And this book shows some new paper comic strips, I believe drawn by Larry Lieber. They even made the Incredible Hulk novels. This one is called Stalker from the Stars, with great cover art by Bob Larkin. And this novel is Cry of the Beast, and once again the cover artist is Bob Larkin. This one is from 1979. Both of these are from 1979. But let's get back to some science fiction. Here's The War Against the Roll by A.E. Van Vogt. And to change it up a little bit, a little horror issue. From Dell Publishing comes the Alfred Hitchcock Presents More Stories My Mother Never Told Me, printed in 1965. This next one's kind of an oddball you don't see very often. There Ought to Be a Law. It's a newspaper 2-panel gag strip that showed up and showed one panel showing the way things ought to be, but in the second panel would be how things actually are. That's the gag. Written by Harry Shorten in 1976. Now here's the Joker's Joke Book, 1987, by Mort Todd. And Little Abner, The World of Little Abner, 5th printing, 1965, from Ballantine. It reprints strips from 1953, I believe. Here's a couple of Popeye books. Now, Popeye is a sailor, but many times he was a prize fighter as well. This one from 1980, and this other one, I showed them out of order. This one's from 1979, where Popeye goes out west. And speaking of the other Superman, here's a great Superman book from 1978. The interiors are black and white, but for me, the highlight of this book was being introduced to the mermaid that Superman fell in love with. Also from that same series came this lovely edition of World's Finest from 1978. These interiors are black and white, but the artwork is superb. And let's keep this World's Finest book right here and introduce another World's Finest book. These thin color digests are great. This one is from 1982. And this one is from 1981. These are usually listed in the Best of DC series. This one is coming up as Batman. No, I'm sorry. Secret Origins from 1977. I'm getting out of order. And Batman from February 1981. Here is the Flash and his friends from 1981. DC's Blue Ribbon Digest from 1981. Have some more Secret Origins from 1980. The Best of DC 1981 Superboy. 1981 saw a lot of these digests. Here's the one for Warlord. Here's Blue Ribbon Digest number 12, The Haunted Tank. You guessed it. From 1981. Great Joe Kubert artwork. UFO Invaders, and while I'm at it, here's Adventure Comics. Adventure Comics number 495. They continued the numbering series from the comic books, but I keep this book with the other paperbacks. Call me old-fashioned, but I'm not going to stick that in the short box of Adventure Comics. Now, little gold key. Here is the Mystery Digest number 12 from July 1973. This is from the Gold Key Mystery line of books. I'll show you a few more of these later on. Here's the back cover. Get the riddle on the bottom. You have to turn it over to get the answer. It's Golden Comics Digest. I'm a sucker for these. I'll show you more of these much later on. Here's some interior artwork. Here is the Space Angel, and it looks like a cover crease at the bottom, but it's not. It's a rocket blasting in from the bottom corner. Looks like quite a collision. Here's Doomsday on Agiet. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And here's a Dre Prescott book, Beast of Antares. And The Star Mill by Emil Pataja. And The Phantom, The Golden Circle, written by Lee Falk. The Space Willies. It's an Ace double book by Eric Frank Russell. Over here is the Pirates of Zan. I'm going to flip these over here. On the other side of the Space Willies. 6 Worlds Yonder. And the Mutant Weapon. Almost like a crazy virus, they're going to lock everybody down. Here's the Mechanical Monarch. And Recruit for Andromeda. Twice Upon a Time. Now sometimes they printed these by themselves. So you might find a copy of one of these stories without the other story on the back of the book. And I try to go in real close so you can see as many details as you can. But most of them are just absolutely beautiful. And hopefully I'm going slow enough that if you like one of these, write it down and go search for it. Here's Fire in the Heavens. Here we have Empire of the Atom by A.E. Van Vogt. Sorry about the camera here, but that's just brilliant artwork. And the Coils of Time. Now we'll flip this one over. Just beautiful. Space Station #1. Fantastic artwork. For those of you that didn't know what to expect when you clicked on this video, I'm a big science fiction fan. But I've tried to mix it up and show you a lot of newspaper, comics, and superheroes. But this is primarily science fiction. Stay tuned for a lot of Hagar the Horrible, Charlie Brown, some Walt Disney, you name it. And of course, more science fiction. Here's The Earth in Peril. Just beautiful. Everybody needs a shirt just like that. Here's The Man Who Corrupted Earth. It was a recent pickup at a local bookstore nearby. And the World Grabbers. Now, this Twin Worlds is book number 4 of a series. I guess I need to go find the first 3 books, but looks great. The Professor Jameson series. Now for some Flash Gordon. I wore out my copy of that book, and so I had to replace it with this book. It's not in the best of condition, but at least I got it back. And Flash is going to help this lady find some clothing somewhere. This is a novel. In this novel, Flash is already married to Dale. This is the presidential 0-year mystery. For a while there, it seemed like bad things were happening to presidents any time a year had the 0 in it. And here's some C.S. Lewis, Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I'll show you book 1 and the last book, book 6. No need to bore you with all of them. Here's from the Picture Bible for Children. This is a 6-book series, and their artwork is just fantastic. I wish I could find out who the artist was way back then, but it's just phenomenal stuff. So this is the first book, the creation book, and I have all 6. I even have some weird variant covers I'll show you here in a minute. As you can see, the art's just very, very good job. Wonderful. Now this is the same book, although they had kind of a rainbow effect on the cover. I don't know why they changed that to the comic looking, as you can see, it's the very same book. I think they worried that people might suspect that there's color inside the book, so they went to the black and white version you see on the left, or the panel on the cover. Here's another one of those color rainbows, but I don't know why. Maybe they just said, hey, let's do both. I don't know what they were thinking. Of course, there's Kings and the Prophets and the Captivity. And then book 5 is the Jesus book. And I have the other copy of that where it's just the panel on the cover. And the 6th and final book is The Church. I think I have an additional copy of that. Yep. Now here are the Hagar the Horrible series. I have quite a few, but I wanted you to see the first 8. And you could tell I have a few duplicates in there. But the first 8 Hagar the books, for some reason, they numbered them. And then they didn't number anymore. So it's up to you to figure out which book was book number 9 and book number 10 and so forth and so on. But after I show you these first 8, I'll show you a little commercial, and then we'll show you my Hagar collection. When you're searching for a bunch of these, sometimes you get in an auction a group that you're looking for one, and you end up with extras that you already had, but you have to get that one book that's in the group. And now enjoy this brief little commercial. I think you'll get a kick out of it.
2 pints of skull, a chicken biryani for you, sir. Ooh. And for Hagar the Horrible, our house speciality, Arctic Moose Vindaloo, extra hot.
Box of chili.
Ooh, what's it like?
And now here's some Wizard of Id, also by Johnny Hart, who created BC that I showed you earlier at the beginning of this episode. Wizard of Id had a great cast of characters: a very short king, a Sir Rodney who was not the bravest soldier, their jester was always a drunk, and they had, of course, the wizard and his overbearing wife. These are incredibly funny and well drawn. There's the poor prisoner that never gets to leave the dungeon cell. And now we need to look at some Beetle Bailey.
He's a military hero of the nation, though he doesn't always follow regulations. At the sound of reveille, he is here for you to see, and we know you'll laugh with Private Beetle Bailey. Beetle Bailey, as the general, colonel, major, and the captain, the lieutenant and the sergeant and the corporal, they will tell you with a shout they would gladly live without a certain private by the name of Beetle Bailey. Beetle Bailey.
Beetle Bailey! I gotta keep my eyes on him every minute. Beetle never does anything right. Look at him goofing off. He's driving me whack. Why, that good for nothing. I'll fix him.
Sarge will never look down here.
Okay, Beetle, you've had it. KP for you, boy. Unload that truck.
And now I'm going to show you some Gold Key. Now earlier I showed you a Twilight Zone. It was from the mystery series that Gold Key did. Here's a few more of the mystery books. We have Boris Karloff and Ripley's Believe It or Not to go along with the comic books they already produced. And here's a Gold Key digest, The Lone Ranger. That smoke coming out of the barrel of that gun. Lone Ranger and Tonto. These were great little pickups back in the 70s. They were competition for my comic book money, but I still loved them. The Walt Disney, I'll show you more of those later, but here's another Ripley's. The Golden Comics Digest considered a lot of the Warner Brothers and perhaps the Walter Lantz characters like Woody Woodpecker, Tom and Jerry. Walt Disney had its own section, but these are the Golden Comics Digest. So you see a blending of the Warner Brothers and the Woody Woodpecker crew, Space Mouse. And they're well read and well loved by me as a kid. I would get these in a little bookstore called Book Rack, which you hear Joe Morton talk about. And I'd also get them from a place called Duckburg Comics, no longer in business. You'll recognize little Jody there from Family Affair. Gladstone put out a few digests. They were a great publisher that took over from Gold Key when Gold Key stopped producing. It was Gladstone that first started letting people know who all these artists, what their names were. So sometimes this is many people's first impression of Carl Barks. They finally figure out who that great artist was. here we get into Pogo. Now this is an actual paperback book of Pogo. Many Pogo books were slightly larger than this, so but to keep all or most of all my Pogo books together in one shot, I decided to go ahead and show them to you. Well, that about wraps it up. I didn't show exactly everything, but this was a pretty good sampling of many of the paperbacks I have. Maybe next time I'll show some that I helped write and helped create, but we might save that for another channel and another time. So until then, happy drawing.